Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Superbet Chess Classic. It's the first tournament in the Grand Chess Tour of the 2022 season, and this is going to be the final recap. I've made a couple of videos on a couple of rounds combined. Today's recap is going to cover rounds 6, 7, 8, 9, and a little bit of the tiebreak because several people tied for first. Friendly reminder, classical time control, so there's one time control, then they get more time on move 40. We're going to cover 7 games today. Hopefully, we're going to get through it between 30 and 35 minutes. And the video is called what it's called, and the thumbnail is what it is because of this very first game. The protagonist is Alireza Firouzja. Actually, I suppose they're both protagonists. I don't think either one of them is much of an antagonist, and features one of the most disgusting moves I've ever seen. The game begins with the move d4, knight f6, and we have a Nimzo Indian. Allowing the Nimzo has gotten a little bit more popular nowadays because it's a very forcing opening by black, and white has a lot of ways not to claim an advantage, but rather to claim like a playable position with some interesting attacking chances that might not be explored. So Alireza plays just the very main line, bishop d3, but now plays an approach that's just incredibly trendy right now, which is to take this pawn, which is what they never used to do, and then play a3. Like, this move order is gaining a ton of popularity. Rapport beat Vidit with it. Wesley beat Mamedyarov with it in this exact tournament. Excuse me. So you basically try to get black to do this, but black doesn't want to anymore because there's no real need. So black puts the bishop on a very comfortable square. And then what white wants to do here is play queen c2, knight e2, f3, g4, h4, and mate. Like, that's basically the game plan. And black will decide how to commit the queenside pawns. So Alireza plays queen c2. C6 played, so potential to play b5. And the thing about black's position is, if black plays b5 really quickly, like, oh, I know you're going to attack me, well, then white is just going to castle. And the funny thing about this is that now this is a massive overcommitment of the pawn structure, and there's no king of white on that side to be attacked. So black has to play a lot of kind of non-committal moves, and once white sees b6, white's like, oh, now you wasted a move doing that. Here comes f3, excuse me. I did not want to cough into the microphone. Black plays c5. So Dominguez understands the assignment. He gets that Alireza is probably not going to castle short, and if he is, well, he's crazy. If now Alireza goes long, then here comes c4. You can force this bishop out this way. Knight c6, rook b8, b5, b4. Yeah, one guy's attack is faster than the other guy. So Alireza still can't castle yet. Plays the move g4. The fact that you could play like this is kind of nuts. I'm gonna be doing it. Like, I'm gonna copy Alireza's game plan, and I'm gonna play chess like this because it's pretty amazing. He plays bishop f5 now, and queen f5, and it's just sort of nuts to me that this structure is completely fine for white. Like, there's no way that black can actually punish it, as ridiculous as it looks to create this bathtub from D to G. G6, queen g5, and Linier puts the bishop back on f8. Bishop back to f8 has 2 ideas. Number 1, h6. Actually, you want to just kick the queen out. You want to defend that. You want to play this. Also, the bishop could be fianchettoed in the long run. You don't know if you're going to do that, but I think the first part of his plan is to play this h6 move, and then he plays b5. b5 looks like it is a free pawn. It is most certainly not a free pawn because of rook b8. Yeah, I mean, if anybody's done anything here, I like Linier's position. I mean, he has a very solid structure. Alireza still kind of has scattered pawns that really looks like none of them can move up. This gets taken, this gets taken, this hangs g4 and then gives away the e4 square. So probably he will have to play h3, but he tells me to shove it and plays h4. I mean, Alireza's not done. He's playing for a win. Like, really, he's just using the same side pawn attack to attack Linier. Again, when you play like this, you're terrible. When they play like this, they're geniuses, right? He rotates his queenside knight back and plays g5. It's like Alireza has completely surrendered the entire rectangle over here. He just doesn't care. Nothing is on that side. All his pieces have been moved to the king side of the board. g5 takes, knight back to d7. And here, my friends, is where the savagery begins. This is not the move that the thumbnail inspired. First, he plays king f2. In the middle of a game with knights, bishop, queen, 2 rooks, Alireza plays the move king f2. The idea of king f2 is to play rook h1. So now he's put his rook on the h-file. But the thing is, when black has a fianchettoed bishop, very unlikely that black will get mated. Even though the white queen can get here, and that's what it's actively trying to do, there's no mate. So for example, I don't know, b3, like there's no mate here. Like it's good, and probably you will find a way forward, but there's no mate. Right, so knight back to e7, knight g3, and I mean, Lanier's doing a good job here. He is defending kind of the key infiltration spots. His queen guards everything. So how is Alireza really going to do much here? Well, first, Alireza finds takes. And even though the queen can take, the knight loses the defender, and now queen takes d7. However, the evaluation of this position is still zeros, and if this is scary for anybody, it's scary for the guy who's going to lose a pawn with check, and then the c-pawn will be passing. Alireza doesn't care. He's like, my king is completely safe with the horses. Go ahead and take my pawn on b2, which does occur. And black is now equal in terms of pawns and has a passed c-pawn 3 squares away from becoming a queen. Okay, and then Alireza plays queen f4. And this is the move that's not safe for work. NSFW warning on the thumbnail. This move is absolutely incredible. Uh-oh. I forgot to plug my phone in before I started recording this recap. So now I'm recording this recap with a plugged-in phone. That move, folks, is rook h7. Oh my. Oh my. That is a it's like he forgot it was not guarded. But you can't take it. If you take it, I go here, and all these beautiful pieces cannot prevent rook h1 mate. The king has been wedged on the side of the board with no escape, and there's nothing that can stop my rook h1. The king's completely safe. Insane. So you can't take it. And since you can't take it, I'm going to build behind it. And I'm ready. All right? The threat is rook h1, for example. The threat is rook h1, rook h8. You're about to let me triple up, and you're not going to be able to stop this checkmate attack. There's nothing you can do. Or I'll take your bishop, and then I'll mate you. Unbelievable. Rook h7, queen h4. Lanier sacrificing his knight. And Alireza, cool, calm, and collected, takes on g7, takes on d4, and sends us into an endgame with 2 knights for a rook. 2 pieces for a rook are really advantageous and most likely going to be decisive. And Alireza, like, just beautifully coordinates his pieces here, pushes back Lanier's defenses, and all he's got to do is coordinate his knights in the right way to win the pawns. And he does that. He's going to win d5. He does, and now the e and f pawns are just rolling. And Alireza wins, knight e6 check. Lanier resigns because every pawn is about to collapse. If you play king h6, I can even go back and mate you. And all this began with the absolute savagery of king f2, and all this concluded with the absolute savagery of the move rook h7. When there is no way forward, sometimes you'll find one. All right, rook h7, beautiful move by Alireza, and he is trying to chase a comeback in the tournament after losing in the earlier stage to Nepo. We'll see what happens. Okay, next game I have for you. I'm actually going to show you 2 games that ended very quickly. So this is going to be a part of the recap where 2780 rated players make absurd blunders, and you should feel better about your own chess. MVL playing against Aronian, another Nimzo, but a transposition to a Rogozin. R-A-G-O-Z-I-N, Rogozin defense. Bishop g5, and now we have dc. This is one of the main lines. There's h6 as well. There's c5. He takes, and now we have e4. The point of e4, you want to take back on c4 like this. Black now either plays b5, c5, or h6. Okay, those are the 3 main moves. c5 in the game, counterattacking the center. Now we have bishop c4, cd4, knight d4, bishop c3, bc3. All this is theory. Black gives white the bishop pair, but some weaknesses, and immediately tries to go cash in on those weaknesses. Right, so now we have bishop b5 check. There's also this move where you have queen takes c3 check, king f1, queen takes c4 check, king g1, and then bishop d7 by black. The point is that if you take rook c1 and you lose, so you have to play bishop d7. This is theory. As completely idiotic as this looks, this has been played before. But I promise to you, what you're seeing is also relatively theoretical. There is a king on e2. Maxime did not show up to this game drunk. Actually, I have no proof of that. He could have been drunk, but most likely he was not. Yeah, I mean, he played this opening because this is some sort of theory. Queen b2, queen d2, And we get a position where MVL has deliberately sacrificed the pawn. And he sacrificed the pawn for massive activity. So if you notice, like, white's pieces are like really deep in black's territory. The rook on c7 is a menace. But the thing is, when you're up a pawn, all you gotta do is consolidate, right? So rook d8, knight b6. Like, all Levon's gotta do is play a couple of good moves, and MVL has to not remember the computer plan, which is probably what he prepared, and then he's gonna get a terrible position. So MVL plays knight b3, here comes f5. If white takes on f5, black has knight d5 check. Okay, so just that's what you get for putting your king out in the open. And if you play something like f3, I mean, which is a nice and solid move that I'm gonna take, maybe I'll play f5 again, but I'm gonna get my bishop out, my rook out, etc. Well, Catastrophe doesn't wait long to strike in this game because MVL plays f4. And the idea of f4 is maybe in the long run, you want to prevent e5. Maybe you'll play e5 yourself when this is no longer a fork. But, the main idea for now is to not allow black to play e5. So black plays e5 immediately, and it actually turns out that that's the best move. It's the best move because if you take, then f4 deflects the king off of the bishop, and then if you try to protect it, black's bishop activates, and black swarms white, and knight a4, and it's a mate. MVL just got mated in 25 moves in the center of the board. His king has no moves. Knight a4, and he resigns. Because rook d8 is literally mate. The only way to protect this is to play this, so that you have this. And bishop c4 hangs a bishop in one move. And MVL does not want to play a game down a full piece. Knight a4 on move 25 by black, and the game ends. The man got his king mated in the center of the board. I mean, you cannot make this up. These are top 10 players. What? How? They get 90 minutes at the start of the game. I don't know. It's crazy. Crazy, crazy, crazy. I mean, the thing is, MVL is not a d4 player. That's the other thing. Like, he's excellent and obviously knows every opening under the sun, but I feel like Levon, who's played the Rogozin like a bajillion times, probably feels a little bit more comfort. I don't know. But still, this is kind of nuts that, like, you get, I mean, maybe he messed up some of his prep, didn't remember his line exactly, but just plays a move to stop a move, but absolutely green lights the move, and 5 moves later resigns. It's insanity. Knight a4 and the game ends. Now, the next game that I have for you that ended extremely quickly actually also features Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, which is kind of hilarious. This one is against Richard Rapport. So this one was a Queen's Gambit accepted. So as the last game we had a Rogozin, Knight c3, bishop b4. This time we have QGA, which is also for some reason very popular right now. These lines with, bishop c4, c5, etc. And MVL allows Rapport to get exotic, right? So white does not castle. White allows black to have a very powerful queenside. So yeah, very imbalanced position from the opening. Black getting this beautiful cascading structure. I really like this. And this pawn is sort of like a gambit. Black can't really, I mean, black could take, but then white shoves forward. And after knight to e4, at the very least, there is takes, and knight g5, hitting both pawns. This is at the very least. And at the very most, I'm sure there are lines where white can just like gambit everything and just open everything up and go on some sort of big attack. Wow, I was so excited to talk about this opening that I spat on my microphone. That's disgusting. Not that you had to know that, but now you do. Sorry. Although I don't know how many people are even here 14 minutes into the recap. Maybe some people get bored, they click something on the sidebar. Let me know. What's your favorite snack? All right, how about that? What's your favorite snack? Like, you're sitting at home, you're kind of hungry. What do you want to eat? All right. Tell me that. Knight d7. He doesn't take the bait, and we have de6, fe6, and Rapport's going for it. All right, Rapport is going for it. That pawn is weak. I'm going to take it. MVL's like, that pawn's not weak. You're not going to take it. And Rapport sacks. He gives up his e-pawn. Queen e5 can just be taken, but he does it to attack. MVL's like, well, the guy wants to attack me, so it's probably smart of me to trade his most powerful piece. And actually, white doesn't have much of a choice, because if white plays a move like queen e2, trying not to trade, black will first threaten mate. So then this has to be played. Then black will go here, and then black is going to castle. And at this point, if you play knight e6, well, what was the... I mean, now we're still going to trade, and I still have this big 3-on-2. So I have a pretty good advantage of pawn structure in the endgame. So we have a trade. Bishop e3, relatively normal game. I mean, we have takes, knight e6, Rapport gets his pawn back. It's also a fork. Rook fc8. Rapport here has the option to take, but he actually likes his knight, so instead plays a3 and h3, and then plays g4. So Rapport is not really done. He's actually still trying to attack, even though these bishops are absolute savages, but nobody's really helping them. Rook e8, he moves the king out of the way, and the idea of moving the king out of the way of this bishop is to actually get this pawn forward. So Rapport has not had enough, okay? He's still pushing all his pawns. All the pawns in front of his king have left the station, every single pawn. MVL plays bishop a5, okay? Bishop a5 just kind of slows down white's position. Rapport here plays the move rook e5. Knight d7 attacks the rook. And here you could perhaps expect a repetition of moves, because that's it, really. I mean, there's not really much of a way for Rapport to make any forward progress. This will completely undermine the knight. There's nothing he can do on the queen side. So what does Rapport do when threatened with potentially a repetition or at least retreating? He moves forward. He moves forward. So what the heck is this? Well, the point is you can't take the rook, because then I will take, and you can't take because rook d8, king f7, rook f8. That's mate. Or that's what Rapport thought. Rapport forgot the bishop covers d8. That's what was suspected. After knight takes e5, Rapport resigned. Because after this, he's simply a piece down. In a classical time control game, a 2760 rated player forgot that a bishop covers a square and resigned the game because he couldn't follow through with his 3-move combination. Folks, you can't make this stuff up. I mean, like, what? What? Huh? What? This is not Title Tuesday. I mean, what? Hello? And also, I love how MVL's just involved again in a short game, but this time he's the winner. Yeah, I mean, crazy. Just crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. And sometimes when I show these games, like, instead of watching and just enjoying the recap and, you know, having a laugh, like, wow, I can't believe that happened, some people actually sit there and go, this arrogant international master really thinks he could have... That's not the point. I don't make the games to make fun of the players for my own personal... Like, the people who think that are really weird. Admittedly, I probably would not have played 95, but I don't know. I don't know. It happens, I guess. And Rapport has had a rough tournament. He's had a rough tournament. So it's just fun to watch Super GMs blunder because it gives you a sense of completion. Okay, the next game that I have for you is from game round 7 or 8. Some Grandmaster called this one of the worst games he has ever seen between top 10 players. I forgot where I saw it. It was a tweet, I think. So this game was called by another GM one of the worst top 10 games ever. So here we go. You guys ready? Here we go. E4, E5. We have an Italian. And we have an Italian where white doesn't play for D4. White plays D3. And black plays aggressively. Black plays the move D5. So a very complicated position early. As the pieces for black, including the bishops, obviously, are very active. But the engine really likes these positions for white. And this is kind of a gambit line where this pawn can just simply be taken. There are many complications afterward, but yeah, Mamedyarov chooses not to take. He plays king h8. The king is trying to teleport off the map, and also trying to play f5 because you've unpinned yourself. So, knight e4, knight g3, takes. Okay, now white just has the bishop pair. I actually don't understand this whatsoever. Like, white has the full 2 bishops, and more active pieces. So white is just clearly better. I thought Benji was eating the chair, but he's eating his chew behind the chair. F5. Now F5 was part of the game plan. Obviously, if white takes, he's just pinning himself, and he loses. So that did not happen in this game. Instead, he strikes back in the center, sacking the pawn and activating his bishop on the powerful F4 square, gambiting the pawn on C3. But here... black is better if and only if black plays g5, which, let me tell you right now, you do not need to give Mamedyarov a second invitation to go party. All right? Some people need to be convinced. Some people have social anxiety. Some people are tired. Some people don't want to drink anymore. Mamedyarov is none of the above. You invite him to the party, he will be there. G5, baby. Bishop E3 takes knight E5, and black is just much better. Black is up a pawn. White has a ruined pawn structure. White no longer has a bishop pair. I mean, black is doing very well. All his pieces are playing. Rook F1, he goes for a queen trade. Now, if Nepo were to take after HG, positionally speaking, Nepo is completely lost. Like, it's not, the game's over. Black has a beautiful cluster, another 3. This is awful. 3 pawn islands, it's game over, and down a pawn. So Nepo in this game needs to keep as many pieces on the board as possible, and he does. And he actually makes it so that it's very difficult for black to defend himself. Like, all the pressure is on F5, right? Here, Rook F6, and suddenly, despite being a pawn down, Nepo's better. Nepo's better because he's going to get to play G4. So Mamedyarov plays Rook D3 and invites this move to take another pawn. So for a very brief moment, he's up 2 pawns. Now, fireworks, knight takes F5, Rook F5, Rook F5, Rook F5. Check. And Nepo can move his king to safety, relatively speaking, but he plays King F2. King H2, maybe he was concerned with this, but here white has the savage move Queen B2. Not letting the knight move, because it's pinned to the king. And if Rook back to C5, now white can continue the attack with the move H4, which is very difficult. I mean, that's, I don't even, like, if G takes H4, you play King H3. Basically, you sack a pawn and get the king out of, I mean, that's engine stuff. But yeah, this game has head-spinning complications. He plays Queen B2 this way, then he moves his king again. We have H6 defending the G5 pawn, Rook F6, Queen down to D1, Rook F2, Queen check back on D5. Here, Queen back, now the knight blocks the king, now Rook B5 attacks the Queen. Both players have made it to move 40. So both guys get an extra like hour or whatever to figure out this game. Black is still up a pawn, but white still has activity and this king is pretty weak. So what does Nepo try to do? Move his king out of the way of the queen, immediately blundering. Queen C3 check, and well, obviously Mamedyarov wants to trade queens. And if you don't trade queens with Mamedyarov, it doesn't matter that his king is weak. All he has to do is make sure he can get it out of a few checks, and then he's going to promote a queen. Like, he's just going to go C4, C3, or he's going to go B5, C4, C3, C2, C1. So Nepo has to create counterplay, right? And Mamedyarov has to defend his king. Here comes B5. Okay? Knight H5, Nepo's doing his best. You can't take that, by the way, just in case you're confused. That's pinned, right? Although here, after Rook E1, the move Queen G6 wins on the spot. I mean, Mamedyarov just forgets here that he has Queen G6, and anywhere that this moves, he has Knight E1. I mean, it's just insane. He just completely misses Queen G6. He's still totally winning. Plays Queen C4. Queen B4, takes, and he's got the 3-on-1. I don't think there was any more drama in this game, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe there was drama? I don't think so. Yeah, and the pawn just, that's it. E6, Rook E6. And Nepo resigns. Yeah, crazy game. I mean, I would not say it's the worst game I've ever seen by 2 top 10 players, but somebody was definitely criticizing it. It was a wild game for sure. Both of these guys came to fight. Mamedyarov surrendering the bishop pair. Nepo with a completely unnecessary pawn sacrifice, but made the game dynamic. Then Mamedyarov just was in cruise control for a little bit. And then I think A6 was unnecessary. Like, I think he did not have to go here. I think he should have just attacked. A lot of plot twists. Yeah, I mean, Mamedyarov walking in down here and then just being worse. Like, I think, yeah, what can I say? But a fun game. A fun game, but Mamedyarov comes out the winner. Now, this is one of the most important games of the entire tournament. We see another guy back here, MVL. MVL's been here a while. Yeah, he has to take on Alireza Firouzja with black, and he has to win. And Firouzja has to win in order to kind of salvage a decent tournament. MVL needs to win in order to tie for first and play in the playoff. So we have a Fianchetto. Okay, bishop g2 castles, trying to avoid MVL's Grunfeld. And MVL plays the symmetrical. So castles. Position is very similar here. And sometimes what white will do is play cd5, and cd5, and literally get total symmetry. Alireza plays knight e5, which is one of the lines, and now we just have imbalance. So we have 3-2, powerful bishop, but bishop e6, and bishop d5 trying to trade white's bishop, okay? We have bishop b2, and taking away white's light squared bishop, and now playing the move b5. So MVL is trying to mix things up. And really, he's trying knight e5. Like, he's trying to create as many complications as possible. So we have a trade, we have another trade on f6. What's going on? Equal position, right? But 3-2, again, in terms of pawns. The bishops see like this. White has a 4-on-3, so maybe white will try to take space, put the rooks on f1 and d1 and c1, sorry, and pressure the queen side. Maxime is going to play queen e7 and queen c5. So his queen is actually leading the charge for his position, and his rooks most likely will go here. It's interesting that Alireza chooses not to put his rook on d1, because instead he, I guess, is trying to play for e4. So knight d1. Alireza says, let's trade queens. MVL says, sure, I'm going to defend my c6 pawn. Now, just so you understand the imbalances of this position, for example, if white plays bishop takes knight, we're going to get a knight versus bishop endgame, but this knight cannot really get into the game so easily. Anywhere here, it will be taken, potentially. But if allowed to get on the d3 square, for example, there are still problems. So it's not an easy position. Like, it's kind of difficult here for white to coordinate where he wants the bishop, where he wants the knight, etc. But he is kind of trying to pressure the c6 pawn, etc. Give me 1 second. My Lucy's away right now, and she just woke up and she just messaged me. So I like to tell her good morning, and then I will get back to recording this video. You can cue the comments now. That's so unprofessional. Oh. Anyway, you know what else is unprofessional? I'm not going to say any words. I'm going to take a sip of my oat milk latte, and you're just going to have to deal with it. Look. Delicious. Rook d8. Rook, knight back to f1. And we now have a rooks and knight middle endgame. Firouzja is trying to beat MVL. Let's see how he's going to try to do it, right? MVL trading on the queen side. Yo, look at this move, by the way. Look at this move. He's trying to control c3. The rook is going to come. I mean, look, what is this? The point is that you can't do this because you're going to lose a pawn. And he's going to, I mean, that is a savage move. And the best part is it's not even a good move. Apparently after this, rook b2, top computer move, and knight c4, and you just punish black for being so careless. Alireza takes, and instead does it like this. So now there's a pass pawn for MVL, and we're getting tactical complications all over the board. Rook d1, knight back to f6, e5 forward, knight g4, hitting all three pawns. Rook b2 is coming. Knight e3 is coming. Right? Knight e5 is coming. And Firouzja gets tangled in a web here and is simply down material. Not only is he down material, there is a passed b pawn. So what's going to happen is, even though he can take on f7 for a very brief moment, that pawn is going. And that pawn is going to end up making him sacrifice the knight. This move, rook e3, completely changed the game. It wasn't even the best move according to the machine, but it was so savage by MVL that Alireza was unable to bounce back and ends up in an endgame down a full piece. And it's 3-on-2. Technically, I think Stockfish would be able to hold this against the human. Maybe. But it's so difficult. And the thing is that for black, he just has to constantly threaten a rook trade because the knight endgame is winning. And the way that white advances with the pawns here is it's very, very delicate situation how white advances with the pawns. What white wants to do is trade off black's final pawn. Rook and knight versus rook is a draw. Rook, knight, and pawn is not a draw. And if you can find a way, yep, look at that. He's not allowing knight h5. Now, I think Stockfish still thinks this is a draw. It actually thinks this is a fortress. But I think here Firouzja had to play king e4. Because when he played king g4, this allowed some sort of It allowed something. I think it basically glued his king away. Whereas if he had put his king on e4 with rook d1 coming, the king would be active on e5. I think this was what Stockfish wanted. It wanted Alireza to put his king on e5. Because what he did in this endgame is he played passively, and the black king got active. And once the black king gets active, the game is over. That's what it comes down to. The activity of the king. And yeah, MVL beats Alireza in 71 moves. Alireza resigns in view of just losing all his pawns. And MVL's tied for first. And let me tell you something right now, my friends. The trio of MVL, Wesley So, and Levon had to play a tiebreak. And I'm going to show you this game only, because this is all you have to know about the tiebreak. We get a 4 knights English. We get g3, and we have a line d5 and bishop c5. Yesipenko played this with the black pieces versus Hikaru in the Grand Prix recently. Castles, castles, and a relatively interesting and imbalanced middle game like this. Okay, so white has kind of a reverse Sicilian structure. It's like e4, c5, knight f3, you know, d6. It's kind of a Najdorf, actually. MVL has a reverse Najdorf structure, believe it or not. He's playing a Najdorf with white. And he plays the move knight a4 and knight c5. This is exactly what white wants in these positions, getting that active knight there. And the rook pressuring the queen side. Wesley, and by the way, the tiebreak obviously is a faster time control. It's like rapid and blitz. DE, knight e4, rook back to c2. And yeah, I mean, Wesley comes to fight. You know, Wesley's got very active pieces here. His knights, his bishop looking very, very nice. And he takes the pawn on e2. So this rook is stranded in the white territory after the move bishop to e3. But Wesley is not concerned because there's no real way for white to attack it. What do I mean by that? Queen d1, rook b2. And that's it. That's the only way you can attack the rook. You can't really attack it with the knight because I can take it. So rook d1, queen f6, and still he plays knight d4. We have takes, takes, and MVL wins his pawn back. So it's 5 pawns versus 5 pawns, and Wesley is better. Wesley is better, but that's according to the machine. What about from human play? All right? King h7, and MVL takes a pawn. Cold-blooded, unconcerned about the safety of his king. No, actually, very concerned about the safety of his king, and doing it the right way, calculating. And then here you're going to witness some absolute bravery from Maxime. Okay? He plays king f1. Then the rook gets booted back. Rook e4 is a beautiful move, by the way, because of this, there's knight g3. And then the queen takes the queen. Rook e6, queen h5. Watch how MVL runs out of danger. He plays b4 and basically is like, Wesley, you gave me an extra pawn, and I am going to push my extra pawn. You can attack my king. Go ahead. Rook f6. Here comes the king. Rook e6. Here comes the king. Queen g6. Now I'm going to offer a rook trade. You don't want a rook trade. You're going to attack me from all 3 sides. Look at this. He's going to be attacked from all 3 sides. The knight is going to come down the middle. This king is wide open. MVL is just pushing his pawns. He's just not concerned because there's no danger, right? Doesn't matter how close you're going to get to my king. I'm actually attacking your king. b5. Rook a5, b6. My pawn is going. I'm 2 squares away from having 2 queens. Check. King c3 out. Queen d1. My king is going to keep... Dude, this guy just walked his king the entire length of the board. And by the way, actually here, he's losing if Wesley finds rook a2. But Wesley doesn't see it. He plays knight f3. And I think h takes g6 here is what the computer wanted. But queen b3. And look at the white king go. Apparently here, queen e1, check, is winning for black. There were several ways that black could have gotten a winning position here, but obviously time is super low. And here I think Wesley just missed queen c3. I don't exactly know what he missed either, because you just win the bishop, and then I guess you give mate somehow. Maybe not. Maybe there's some other engine line. But Wesley goes here, and MVL's king just goes to d6. It's completely insane. Queen c8, and now there's just queen f7. And Wesley resigns. What? Can we go back like 10 moves? MVL's king ran the entire length of the board around the queen, knight, and rook. Do not try this at home, as the king evades all danger and makes it to d6, and MVL wins. MVL wins the playoff, and he's the champion of the Superbet Chess Classic. He beat Levon as well, but the game against Levon was a little bit different. But he wins both playoffs. Can you believe it? MVL was in like 5 of our games today. He was in the second game, the third game, the 5th game, and the 6th game. Crazy. MVL with a big comeback, back to top 10 in the world after a rough last 2 years. Yeah, I mean, what a fun recap. Alireza with a beautiful move. Alireza with a collapse versus MVL. And yeah, this was MVL's tournament to win. And the next classical chess tournament we have is the candidate. So I'll see you then. Let me know who your favorite is. Let me know what your favorite snack is. Whatever. I'll see you in the next video. Get out of here.